This chapter focuses largely on money management skills. Depending on where you are financially, this can either be an unpleasant reality check, a depressing reminder, or a moment of pride. In today's economy, many Americans would rather stick their head in the sand than reflect upon their financial statements. That aside, Chapter 2 sets us up nicely for our final project at the end of the year by outlining some key concepts. Let me briefly review some of these with you. Assets are things that we own. So liquid assets are items that are the same as cash, or could be the same as cash in a short period of time. Some examples of liquid assets are cash itself, the value of your checking account, your savings account, maybe a CD or mutual funds. Liquid assets are usually items that can easily be converted to cash in a short-term window. Things that could not be considered liquid assets would be jewelry, collector's items, cars, boats, your surfboard, electronics, real estate. Anything that takes some time and could be hard to find a specific buyer are not considered liquid assets. They're still assets, but not liquid. Real estate is an asset, but it's not considered liquid. You can't just easily sell your home for a guaranteed sum in a short period of time. Now, liabilities are amounts that we owe others. There's current liabilities and long-term liabilities. Current liabilities are debts that must be paid in full in a short period of time, usually less than 12 months. Some examples of current liabilities could be the air conditioning repair you recently had in your home, your cell phone bill from last month. One example of a current liability in our business is the form of job materials. We purchase the materials, do the job, and they are billed within a 30 to 45-day window. Once those materials are delivered to the job site, they become our liability. I know in the back of my mind that I owe a certain sum of money to the supplier even though they actually haven't billed me yet. So that is a current liability. I also know I'll need to be able to pay them that money upon receipt of the bill. Another current liability is your electric bill. You've already used that electricity and you're going to need to pay that bill in full upon receipt. Unlike a credit card, you can't carry a balance with the electric company, so that's a current liability. Now, long-term liabilities are things that you owe, but don't have to be paid in full for over a year. My example is a mortgage. It's a long-term liability. Yes, I'm required to pay a monthly amount, but the entire balance for the purchase of my home is not due for quite some time. Other examples of long-term liabilities are car loans, student loans, that computer loan from Apple. Those are all long-term liabilities. Net worth. Once you know what your assets and liabilities are, you can calculate your net worth because net worth is equal to your assets minus your liabilities. For many people, net worth might be negative. For short-term periods, this is okay as long as that person has a plan to remedy the situation. Take some time this week to consider your net worth. Is it where you'd like it to be? What could you do to change it or improve upon your current path? Probably your first step would be to look at your cash flow statement. Where does your money go? Cash flow refers to your income, which is the money that you make, and your outflow, which is the money that leaves you. The discretionary income, also known as disposable income, is anything that's left. If your income isn't enough to pay your bills, you would have no disposable income. There's nothing left for any non-essential spending. If you have disposable income, then it's your responsibility to spend it wisely. And that brings us to budget. In my opinion, budgeting is kind of like dieting, a constant reminder that you should probably not be indulging. But it doesn't really have to be that way, especially if you're focused on long-term strategies. The first step of budgeting is to determine your goal. For example, maybe you are doing fine with little to no debt, but you also have a small savings. Well, let's think about how you'll ensure that you have an adequate emergency fund. You should have between 3 to 6 months of expenses in a savings account in the form of an emergency fund. This will keep you out of debt when the unplanned happens. Depending on your profession, family, expenses, 3 months might not be adequate. Is your income highly variable? Do you have a lot of children? Does your job feel safe? Do you work in a high-risk profession where an injury could affect your ability to get work? In the case of my family, 3 months is just not adequate. Our income is highly variable. My children's expenses are high. My self-employed husband's occupation depends largely on his good health. And I'm a conservative worrywart, so I don't sleep well at night unless I have at least 6 months of an untouchable, readily accessible emergency fund. Your situation might be different. You might feel entirely comfortable with less in your emergency fund, or you might demand more. But usually anything greater than 6 months of a fund is advised to be invested. But we'll get into that into some later chapters. Budgeting does take time. There are a bunch of computer programs, though, that make budgeting a little easier or visually pleasing. I've enjoyed Quicken in the past, and I currently like iBank. Quicken worked very well on personal computers, but I have an Apple now, and iBank has a nifty syncing feature that allows you and your partner to update any expenses immediately through an app on your phone. It also improves communication between spouses by showing all income and expenses to both parties on their phone or iPad. A lot of these apps do cost money, and there are plenty of free ones out there as well. You can even use the traditional method of pencil and paper and work just fine. Be wary of companies that charge you large sums for the next greatest product, because most likely you can accomplish the same task on your own. One popular website is Dave Ramsey. He does charge quite a bit for books and lecture series. I actually haven't bought them or been to any of those, but they're very popular. You can obtain just about all the same essential information from his website that you would need to organize your finances for free. So if you have some time, go ahead and check his site out. If you're living on a tight income and having difficulty saving money or paying off debt, consider some ways to reduce your expenses instead. I have some ideas for you. The first one, your car. Can you ditch it? Can you walk, bike, or carpool more often? Living in a rural area such as ours makes living without a car pretty difficult. However, gas and car expenses do add up quickly. Can you dramatically reduce your driving? Taking this online course is already one step in that direction. Why eat out? With a little planning, you should never have to purchase prepared food. A cooler, a sandwich, and fresh fruit will not only save you time, but money as well. Bottled water. That's the biggest waste of money right there. When you think of how quickly that water adds up, you might want to get into the habit of using a reusable water bottle. It's not only better for the environment, but your budget. Cell phone bills. Call that cell phone company and ask them to review your calling patterns. Are you in the most affordable plan for your habits? I was surprised this summer when adding a line that I had been overpaying for years for thresholds of minutes I never came close to. A quick phone call could save you $20 a month. Are you paying the best price for your cable and internet? Often companies offer incentives to switch. Buy things on sale. I personally am terrible with coupons because it requires me to buy products that maybe I didn't really want in the first place. I have to remember to give the coupon to the checkout person at the end. I always seem to forget. But when I do see an item on sale that I know my family eats regularly, I stock up. But price compare. Just don't assume that something's on sale as the better value. Have you ever noticed that Walmart and Sam's Club usually offer products at the same price per ounce? They're owned by the same company, and there's usually not a discount between the two. Do you really need 50 pounds of laundry detergent? Don't assume that buying in bulk is saving you money. It usually does, but it's not guaranteed. Sometimes your cost per unit is even more than you would think. Use that freezer for leftovers and reduce your food waste. But don't forget about them. Americans discard 40% of their food. That sounds like a lot, but think about that next time you clean out your refrigerator and toss out old food. It's probably more accurate than you realize. The CDC report indicates that an average American family of 4 ends up throwing away over $2,275 of food each year. You are literally tossing money away by letting that food go to waste. So learn to be creative with cooking and mindful of that waste. But finally, allow for some fun. You're likely to stick to that budget if it doesn't feel too restrictive. So allow for some non-accountable spending each month to lighten your spirits. This concludes your lecture for Module 2. Be sure to review your checklist to ensure you are meeting the module requirements. And as always, if you have any questions, just send me an email.